It was the dead of winter in St. Louis, and I was completing my fellowship in psychology when I had purchased my first brand new car, a 1987 Toyota Celica. I was so excited to be able to afford my first new car, this white, shiny sports car. It was my prized possession. In the middle of the night, there's a banging on my apartment door. I open it up, and people are running around frantically yelling, "There's a fire, get out!" I grab my keys, I run downstairs, and the building next to mine is engulfed in flames. I scurry over to try to move my car because it's sitting smack in front of that burning building. I'm quickly intercepted by this burly policeman, and I pleaded with him to move the car. To no avail. I had to watch from 100 feet away as my beautiful new car burned. The windshield shattered, the hood melted. I felt completely powerless. I had no control. Control is a loaded word, isn't it? We often pursue control to try to avoid something bad from happening, real or perceived. Some of us have experienced trauma from our past, and we rely on control to protect us from future pain. Unfortunately, avoiding pain lessens our ability to experience pleasure. Being vulnerable and trusting others allows us to deepen our connections, but it requires us to let people in. It requires us to be comfortable in relationships where we can trust others, and it also requires us to deal with conflict and emotional pain. Everyone has fears and insecurities about something. What are yours? For me, my fears were related to loss and abandonment. The year I turned 13, my mother became very ill and was diagnosed with melanoma. I was the baby of the family, so therefore spoiled rotten. And I didn't realize the seriousness of her condition. And one day I was playing at my best friend's house, and a phone call came in. And my father wanted me home immediately. It was the longest walk ever, as I anticipated the bad news. He sat me down and shared the news with me, and I was crushed. I remember crying every day for months after her death. What would life be like without her? Well, my life changed dramatically from that point forward. I was determined to never experience that level of pain again. Of course, that did not work. Avoiding pain meant that I was resisting forming deep and committed relationships. Over time, working through the overwhelming grief that I had, it gave me an increased awareness and compassion for other people's pain, which contributed to my becoming a psychologist and helping others work through their suffering. This was my way of regaining some control. Exerting control over others is often bad. It's often negative. And there's many different forms of control. There's passive-aggressive. There's withholding. There's aggressiveness. There's manipulation. I can recall having a couple in my office, and the wife was telling the husband what to do by yelling at him. I leaned over and I said in the softest of voices, "I can't hear you," which shocked her. I told her that her husband blocked her words and couldn't hear a word she was saying when she yelled like that. Communicating aggressively never works, and our delivery matters. Not surprisingly, she didn't return to therapy. Even worry is a form of control as we try to prepare for the worst. Most of the things we worry about, we have no control over, and they rarely happen. Now, caretaking is a more subtle form of control. Many of us want to help others. We want to rescue others. We want to take care of others. But sometimes, unintentionally, we end up enabling them or undermining their self-confidence. Maybe they didn't even ask for your help, and no one really likes to be told what to do, especially our spouse. I learned that lesson the hard way when I was trying to get my wife to exercise. You can imagine how that turned out. Not well. I have a passion for exercise. I've been exercising my whole life. Some might call me an exercise fanatic. My wife did not share in the same passion for exercise. And the more I pushed, the more she pushed back. I tried to convince her of the health benefits of exercise, that it would bring us closer together, it would help her in managing her stress. She wasn't buying any of it. The more I tried to convince her by persuading and ultimately controlling her, the more adamant she became about engaging in any form of exercise. Eventually, I gave up and let go of control. You see, I'm a slow learner. I am what you might call a CFIR, control freak in recovery. So guess what? Over time, my wife decided to exercise on her own. Not because she had to, but because she chose to. This story illustrates an interesting phenomenon. When we relinquish control, we actually gain more of it. It's sometimes called the paradox of control. Release it to receive it. The more we try to push people into something, the more likely they're going to dig in and we're going to lose control. But if we respond, we take the time to respond instead of quickly reacting, we often have a better outcome. Imagine that there's a pile of sand in the palm of your hand, and you're so afraid of losing one grain of sand that your natural inclination is to want to grip it. And once you go to grip the sand, it falls between your fingers. But if you relax your hand, the sand will stay still. We can also learn to reframe our thinking so that we're not consumed by uncertainties. Often I have people who are big-time warriors in my office. And I'll encourage them to write down their worries and place them in one of two boxes. There's the control box, and there's the no control box. The items in the control box are easy because you can come up with solutions. It's the no control box that most people struggle with. That requires us to breathe, to release them, to let them go, or give them to our Creator. When we acknowledge our fears and our worries, we take away their power and energy. We can also replace what if with what is. What if keeps us stuck on trying to predict the future. What is allows us to stay in the present. Imagine sitting in the driver's seat of your car and you have a rearview mirror which allows you to look at what's behind you. That represents the past. The windshield of the car only allows you to see what's directly in front of you, which is the present. Down the road, out of sight, is the future. Now, many people live in the past. They're fixated on the past. Those people live with guilt, regret, or resentment. Those that spend most of their time in the future live with fear, worry, and anxiety. Letting go of control enables us to stay in the present. So, if we can accept that control is an epidemic in our society, can we also accept that control is an illusion and highly overrated? Much like I didn't have control over my car burning, my mother dying, or my wife exercising. None of us can completely control our future health, our financial status, or relationships. The only thing we can control is ourselves. Surrender your anxious thoughts, giving up your attempts to control others, and focus your energies on the reality of today. Nurture your connections and your relationships with others. My challenge for you is that you recognize the incredible power and freedom in letting go of control. As you rethink control, as you reimagine the how, what, and why you control, as you loosen your grip on your need for control, you will experience an unexpected and enduring peace.